You want a hard copy of the phone? I have hard copies if you want. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, the today's Gemara is arguably the most difficult blot in your not because it's conceptually difficult. It's just hard. It's a lot of cheshbon. So if I set you up well, I think things will become much easier. Okay. Yesterday we began the perek, and we saw machloikis between Rabbi Eliezer and the Chachamim regarding a person who divorced someone for the whole world except one individual. So Ruvain is Megarish, his wife. He divorces his wife except for Shimon. In other words, regarding Shimon, she's still an Eshes Ish. And Rabbi Eliezer said, in fact, it's a good get. Rabbi Eliezer said, in fact, it would still be a good get. Right? We had a question: is it he divorced chutz from this person, or almanas not to marry this person? In other words, why did it mean Ella? That when he said, I'm giving you this get, Ella vis-a-vis this guy, it's not a get. Now, what does it mean? I'm giving you the get chutz from this guy, or I'm giving you the get almanas that you don't marry this guy. Either way, you can't marry that guy. And either way, like Rabbi Eliezer, it's a good get. We said an nafkamina might be mechila, like Rabbi Elchanan, you can be meichel on a tanai, you can't be meichel on a, once the get is given chutz. We're going to have tonight 4 different Tanoim who, after the death of Rabbi Eliezer, asked a question on Rabbi Eliezer. You want to just move this so I can see clearly? He's going to ask a question on it. 4 people are going to ask a question on Rabbi Eliezer. Right, okay? 4 Tanoim, Gedolei Tanoim, are going to ask a question on Rabbi Eliezer. Good? The Gemara is then going to say, what's the question? In other words, we have a question on their question. Why? No, it's what Rabbi Eliezer might answer to them had he been alive. Then we can just have to figure out, according to Osman Yomin, did they hold Rabbi Eliezer said his din by chutz, or did he say his din by almanas? We had a machloikus yesterday. Where did Rabbi Eliezer say his din? Did he say it only chutz from this person, or even almanas? So the setup is Tanoim, question, right? What question Rabbi Eliezer would have answered them on their question, and are they speaking almanas, or are they speaking chutz? So let's do one by one inside. Let's do one by one inside. Zevi, here, take this hard copy, right? Let's do one by one inside, okay? That's what we're going to do. We're going to do it first. We're going to do the English, and then we're going to do it inside, okay? So if you have your phone on the phone, and if not here, I have it on the screen over here. Okay. So the first question is, okay, this is Rabbi Tarfon. Rabbi Tarfon says, here's the question he would have asked on Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer says that, again, if you divorce a person, except one person, it's a good get. Now, what happens if that person marries the brother of the man she's also to? So, for example, you can marry the whole world except Shimon. You can marry the whole world against Shimon, and she marries Levi. Okay? And then what? She's asa to the brother, right? She's asa to the brother. If Levi dies, then the mitzvah of Yibum will be uprooted, because you can't vis-a-vis, she's an Eshes Ish, vis-a-vis Shimon. So this is the question Rabbi Tarfon would ask. You're telling me she can marry the whole world except Shimon. Part of the whole world is Shimon's brother. She marries Shimon's brother, yes? What happens if Shimon's brother dies? She's going to fall Yibum to what? To Shimon, and Shimon can't marry her. Why? Because it's Asa. Okay, that's the question. That's the question that Reb Tarfon would have asked Reb Eliezer.
Make a difference that she doesn't have a right to go back to the first husband anymore because she remarried now. Is that
hang in there. Now, what's the kasha on this? It's not your oiker directly. It could lead to akara, to being oiker, but it's predicated upon what? Well, you could have married anyone else. You married this guy. So why couldn't I marry this guy? What's to stop me from marrying this guy? Because you're masla masha kosed b'toyra. You didn't go against any tanai. You set yourself up. In other words, at best, at best you never marry to the brother. At worst, you marry the brother, and it's a dover that's goyrim. So that's, in other words, so it's really not a kasha on Rebbe. It's really not a kasha on Rebbe. It's really not a kasha on him. Okay, so that's the first one. And now, why it must be speaking almanas? Why it's speaking almanas? I'll tell you why. If you say the following, you can go ahead and marry everyone in the world except this guy, chutz from this guy. What happens if this guy dies, right? Then, and you married somebody else, right? You're marrying a second person, and that person's dying. You're marrying Levi. Right? Ruvain divorced his wife. You married Levi, Shimon. Good. If it was speaking chutz, right, then there's no kasha in the first place. Because as soon as Levi married Miriam, Ruvain, the Megarish, is out of the picture. We may not take his Tanai completely, right? We may not take what his chutz and his exception. In other words, you can marry everyone except. You went ahead and you married this guy. Once you marry this guy, your accept is out. Masha Ein Kain, if it's a Tanai from the first guy, that Tanai is always binding, despite the fact you're married to the second guy. Despite the fact you marry Levi, the al-Tanai of the first one is still in existence. So therefore, it must be speaking what? Almanas. In order to have the scenario of the kasha, Rav Tarfon must have learned Pshat and Rebbe Eliezer that it's speaking almanas. Because if it's speaking chutz, he doesn't have a question. Again, what's the case? What's your case, guys? Your case is that you married somebody and that person died. Good. If you speak chutz, as soon as that person dies, there's no yibum problem. There's no problem whatsoever. It's gone. It's finished. It's finito. Good. Ella, so for the question to exist, it must be you couldn't marry Shimon almanas. This is your get almanas, because that then would retroactively go back and mess up everything. So it must be speaking almanas. That's the first sheet of the sheet of Rav Tarfon. Okay, so we're going to see this. We're going to see this inside. And the crazy thing to do in this Gemara is to go through one, the question, two, the question, but I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to be so unique. Let's see what we got. Tan Rabbanan on Pei Gimel Amid Aleph. La'acha petirasoi shel Rabbi Eliezer niklasu arbos zekanim laheshiv al devarov. 4 zekanim entered to go ahead what and question on his din. Again, what was his din? That it's possible to go ahead divorce everyone except somebody. Oh, the Eluhain, who are they? Rabbi Yossi Aglili 1, Rav Tarfon 2, Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah 3, Rabbi Akiva 4. Nena Rab Tarfon. Rashi says Nena. They spoke with a Aramis Koil, like in the base of Medrash, like they mamish gave it with a bren, right? V'omar harishahol chazu, right? Hal chazu. This woman goes. V'nisas la'achav shel zeh. She marries Levi, the brother of Shimon, who she can't marry. Shenesru alav, because why? Because she was asatu. Umeis, and Levi dies below banim. Like nimtza zeh oikadavim in atayra. Halamanata she'enzem enze krisus. So obviously this is not a get. Guys, don't get caught up that krisus means it's not a safer krisus. That is only going to be first introduced on the Amid Beis and in the Shita Rebbe Elazar ben Azariah. Means it's not a get. A get like this is not a get. A get like this is not a get. Okay, now, so I did not tell you the shlug up yet. I gave you the shlug up already, and the shlug up is that it's not oikadav min atayra. So what's the big deal? Okay, we're going to go through the other 3 cases, and then we'll go back into the chart and one by one we'll knock them out. Next case, Rabbi Yossi Glili. So Nena Rabbi Yossi Glili, after Rav Tarfon had his say versus Rabbi Eliezer, Nena Rabbi Yossi Glili v'amar heichin motzinu asa lezeh u'mota lezeh. Okay, how do you find the case, right, when it's asa to one and muta to the other? Where do you find the case where it's asa to zeh? Who asks over here, right? Who's going to ask over here? The husband's going to ask over here. Umuta lezeh. That means it's asa to this one and muta to that one. Where do you find the case that what? Where do you find the case that it should be asa lezeh umuta lezeh. So Rabbi Yossi is saying the following: every is in the Torah, the one who asa asas and the one who makes it muta says it's muta, right? And over here, what are you saying? That it's asa to adam echad umutar l'shabnei adam. It can't be that you're asa to one and muta to the other, right? So how's it be asa? The get can asa to one person and mata to everybody else. How can a get accomplish that? How can it be mata to everyone in the world and asa to this one? That was the taina of Rabbi Yossi Aglili. Next taina was Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Halamata is change that creases. Nena Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah Vama creases. It says v'chosav la sefer creases. You'll write for her a sefer creases. And what do we darshin? Dava kares beino leveina. Something that will go kares between him and her. And guys, this is the way I always learned. This get, since you left over Shimon, it's not kares. You can be mutter the whole world. Since there's one person in the world that is mutter, since there's one person in the world that she's asa to, it's not going to work. Halamadata shains akrisis. Finally, Rabbi Akiva, guys, we're going to have two pshatim in Rabbi Akiva. Nena Rabbi Akiva v'amar harei shehol chazu v'nisas lechem in ashuk. She goes ahead and she marries an individual. In other words, she marries any other person that she could in the world, except Shimon. Marries anyone the person except Shimon. V'hayulad bonim, and then she goes ahead what? And she has children from that second person. Then v'nis almana oynis garsha, and she then becomes what, an almana or a gerusha. V'amda v'nisas lazeh. Now she marries Shimon. Shenesra love. So she, after Ruvain divorced her, she went ahead, married Yankel. They had children together. Yankel dies or divorces her, and now she marries Shimon, the one that what she couldn't marry from the original get of Ruvain, was the one person, the Eishesish. Lo nimsa get zeh batel b'no mamzerim. You're going to say that what the get is batel from the original husband Ruvain because she married not Shimon, and the children from Yankel are going to be mamzerim. That's the first taina of Rabbi Akiva. Davar acher, guys, don't worry, we're going to go over each one of these. Davar acher, a second opinion of Rabbi Akiva. Harishahaya ze shenesu alav kayin. The one that she became us to was Shimon's a kayin, guys. Shimon's a kayin. The umeis hamigarish, and now Ruvain dies. So Ruvain divorces Miriam. And now and Shimon gives a get. You can marry anyone in the world except Shimon, and Shimon's a kayin. Umeis hamigarish, and now he dies. So right. So now le'nimsa almana etzloi ugerucha etzel kol adam. You're going to find that she's an almana to him. Why? Because she wasn't a gerusha to the rest of the world. Because regarding him, she was an Eishes Ish. Guys, let's split. When he divorced the whole world. She was a gerusha to the whole world, but she was an Eishes Ish to Shimon. Now you're telling me when she dies, so she's still a gerusha to the rest of the world, and she's an almana to Shimon. Now, what are you going to say? V'kal v'chleimer, uma gerusha shehi kala asura bishvil tzad gerish and sheba. Guys, listen up. This is important. Guys, listen. This is important. When he divorces her regarding the whole world, regarding Shimon, are you going to say she's just an Eishes Ish and there's no gerish in there? You're going to, in other words, the fact that she's also on the rest of the world as a gerishin, that sad gerishin on the rest of the world shifts to who? To Shimon as well. In other words, you can't split hairs and say the following: she's a gerusha to the rest of the world, and she's an Eishes Ish to Shimon, and now when she dies, she's a gerusha to the rest of the world and almana to Shimon. No, you don't say that. Rashi clearly speaks out that even when she's a gerusha before he dies, that gerusha impacts on Shimon as well. That's the key point, guys.
And he can never marry because he's a kohen.
And he's a kohen. But again, it's important to note that even though she was never a gerusha machmas direct from him, she is a gerusha machmas the rest of the world. Now let's go the other way. Therefore, if that's true, that she's a gerusha machmas the rest of the world vis-a-vis Shimon, that means vis-a-vis the rest of the world, she's an Eishes Ish because of Shimon. Shimon the get is not chal, right? So why does she to Shimon? She's an Eshes Ish. So if you're telling me it works one way, it's got to work the other way also. A tremendous lumdus. Just like vis-a-vis, Labrius, just like vis-a-vis the rest of the world impacts Shimon to make her a Gerusha, so too vis-a-vis the rest of the world, no one should be able to marry her. Why? Because Machmas Shimon, she's an Eshes Ish from the original get. That should impact the rest of the world. Okay, we'll get back to this. Okay. Eshes Ish Chamur like Kol Shekain. Halamarata she'ein zeh krisus. Okay. Amar lahen Rabbi Yeshua. Don't ask questions on the lion. A lion, Rabbi Elazar Hyrcanus was the lion. Don't ask questions. If he was alive, La'achamisa, don't ask questions. If he was alive, maybe what? He'd be able to answer you. Amarava, Kulu Islu Pircha. On all of them, I have a question, meaning, fellas, on all of them, this is a key to the sugya. On all of them, I have a question on their question. So in other words, I don't understand the question. All of them with one exception. And that exception is the Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, the last day Pircha. Like Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, I do not have any question. Tanya Nami Hachi am Rabbi Yosi, Roy Ani Estivit Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah Midrei Kula, and I understand the words of Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah from all of them. So what do we have, guys? We have 4 Manda Omrim. We have Rabbi Akiva saying 2 Pshatim, each one with their own question on Rabbi, Eliezer, right? And now we're going to have there's 2 parts. One, what was the question? Second part, and this is the hard part, was the question, what did they hold? Did they hold almanas or chutz? Because we had a machloikis. What the reason why Rabbi Eliezer held that whether he said you're divorced from everyone except Shimon, or you're divorced almanas, you don't marry Shimon, right? And then so there's 2 things we have to find out now. One, what's the kasha? Rava says, what's the kasha that each one has on each one of these Tanoim? And 2, are they saying is speaking by chutz or almanas? So now let's go through the chart. And now hopefully this will make a little sense, okay? Okay, I'm sure everyone can see this, right? I'm past the point of asking. Okay, so now Rab Tarfon. Here's Rab Tarfon. Again, why is Rab Tarfon's problem is, again, with Shimon and Levi are brothers, she marries Levi. Shimon's the one she can't get married to. Now Levi dies, you're going to be Oika. What's the kasha on that? The kasha is it's a grama. Now, and the thing is, it must be speaking almanas, because here's the key. If it's speaking chutz, this is what Yankel said. If it's speaking chutz, guys, then as soon as she marries somebody else, the first guy's out of the picture. Chutz means, this is Rabbi Eliezer says, as long as as long as she doesn't remarry, once she remarries, the original guy's chutz exception's gone. So therefore, it must be speaking. How could it still be in vogue that the first guy is messing things up? It must be speaking almanas. Next case, Rabbi Yosef said, if she's asa, she's asa, and if she's muta, she's muta. In other words, a manavshach. If she is asa on Shimon, she's asa on the rest of the world. If she is muta to Shimon, the rest of the world, then she's muta to Shimon. You never find a half breed. Says the Gemara, 1 second. What about an Eshes Ish? An Eshes Ish is muta to a husband and asa to everyone else. In other words, that's your kasha on Rabbi Yosef Glili. An Eshes Ish is muta to a husband and asa on everyone else. Right? Now, what is chutz? Why it has to be speaking chutz and not almanas? Right? Because if it's speaking almanas, what would almanas be? This is your get, guys. This is your get almanas that you don't want. Marry Shimon. Kaviyachol, it's asa to have relations with Shimon, but it wouldn't affect the get. Hey, how do you say asa lezeh umuta lezeh? What does asa mean? Asa to be an Eshes Ish, to marry. It wouldn't be asa to have. It's an avera, but it's not an issa. So therefore, it has to be speaking chutz, because then, if it's speaking chutz, then again, she's an Eshes Ish, except vis-a-vis this person. Mashenkin el manas, good, she's an Eshes Ish, but it wouldn't be asa lezeh umuta lezeh. It wouldn't be asa lezeh vis-a-vis nus. It would be asa al Eshes Ish. So therefore, it has to be speaking chutz. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah says the get must be cut her off completely, and there's no question on him. That's why it's over there. There's no question on him whatsoever. Now we have Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva, here's his first pshat, guys. So Rabbi Akiva's first pshat. Let me move this up. If she married, this we did already. Rabbi Akiva, if she married, had children, she marries, she's also to marry Shimon, guys. Good. She marries Yankel. Yankel either dies or divorces her. They have children. Then she marries Shimon, right? What's going to happen? You're going to say the children from the second husband will be mamzerim. Okay. Now, what's the kasha on that? A woman is given a get on any tanai should not be allowed to remarry. With perhaps the tanai will not be fulfilled, and the children from the second marriage will be mamzerim. Are you allowed to divorce on a tanai, guys? Outside, guys. Are you allowed to divorce on a tanai? Absolutely, correct. You can make a tanai. This is your get on tanai, right? Whatever the tanai is. What happens if she maybe marries and then the tanai is not fulfilled, and then it comes out that the get wasn't a get? So, like Rabbi Akiva, if you're worried about not fulfilling the tanai, so then any other tanai you should not be able to go ahead, right, and have an existence. Let's always be worried you won't fulfill the tanai. The get will be what? Bottle. The children will be mamzerim from the second marriage. That's the kasha that Rava would have on. That's the kasha that Rava would have. Now, it must be speaking al menas, right? Because if it's chutz, it's the same thing. Once it's chutz, what's the din? Anything he said is off. Once she married a second guy, we don't worry about the get anymore. You only worry about the get if al tenai, it's in vogue. But she says you can't marry anyone except him. You marry someone else, his accept goes out of the way. So of course you don't have to remember mamzeris. Why? Because even if what she marries Shimon, guess what? By marrying Yankel, that took off Shimon. By marrying Yankel, by having a husband in between, that took it off. So when Rabbi Akiva asked this question, he must hold its almanas, because then Reuven's condition is still in play, as opposed to chutz, which would take off Reuven's not condition, would take off his accept. So therefore, the Gemara, now the last one is very difficult, and therefore, if you see, I wrote over here, right? Forget it, I'll just listen well. The last one is challenging. The last one is challenging, but let's set it up. The last one, okay, let's do all the ones and then we'll get to the last one, okay? Let's do all the other ones and then we'll get to the last one, okay? So again, for the umpteenth time, what are we trying to do? We have Tanoim going ahead and questioning Rebbe Lazar after his death. We have Rabbi saying on all of them I have a kasha with the exception of Rebbe Lazar and Azariah, right? We're saying what the kasha is and we're saying what they must have held to ask the kasha, depending on what, whether they held almanas or they held chutz. So we did one inside already, right? Well, I don't know if we did any inside. Okay, let's do it inside now. I think we're doing inside now. Good now. Amar, we're going over each one. Nena Rebbe Tarfon v'Amar. Harishaholchazu v'nisas la'achiv shel zeh. Right? Again, in our scenario, Shimon is the one that's usher. She's marrying Levi. Shenesru alav. Umeis b'lei banim. Levi dies without fathering any children. And now she's falling to Shimon. Nimsa oika davim in atayra, that Ruvain with his tanai is being oika davim in atayra. Says the Gemara. 1 second. Oiker? He wasn't oiker. He made a simple condition. He simply said the events that occurred afterwards will be beyond his control. He didn't directly say, "I'm making this a get al tanai that you eat chaza." He didn't make a direct correlation to something that's asa. He went ahead and said what? He went ahead and something that elamasna la'akor dov min Torah. He made a tanai that could lead to something that's like min Torah, right? By making this condition that you can't marry Shimon could possibly lead to a bittul of Yibum if she marries the brother. Masna mika amala le'sagila le'minsva le'la'achud al-gavra. Guys, how many people in the world could she marry? Many, correct? Who did she choose to marry? Levi, the brother of Shimon. So he wasn't like him anything, nor did he make a tanai to anything. The fact that she married the brother was the problem. It wasn't the tanai that Ruvain made initially. It was her action marrying Levi that put the whole problem in sequence of events. Ella, what do you have to say? Goyrim la'akadavim in atayra, right? So goyrim. Elameata, if you're worried about Gorama, guys, Elameata, Bas Achiv Layisa. Can a man marry his niece? Guys, can a man marry his niece? Can he marry, guys, let's go back to Yavamis 101. Listen to this case. Can a man marry his brother's daughter, his niece? Yes, good. What happens if they have another wife? What are they called? Saras. What happens if that brother dies? Who's falling to her father? Who's falling to her father? The daughter. It's the first case in what? In the 15 of Yavamis. 1 second. Aren't you goyim lakor? If you're worried about a sequence of events, guess what? You can get rid of the whole first Mishnah in Yavamis. Get rid of it. It's gone. You can get rid of the whole thing. Says the Gemara Elamiata, if you're worried about Grama, that what? That she might marry Levi and Levi dies and she'll fall to Shimon, who's Asa, then what's Yavamis? You should not be able to marry your niece. Shema Yomas Banim. Maybe the uncle will die. Why? Because you won't be able to kind of Yibam because you're going to fall what? To the father. I knew Pircha. That's the Pircha. Guys, you got it? Gavaldig, right? That's the kasha. Now, here's the question. When Rabbi Tarfin said his din, did he hold Almanas or did he hold Chutz? Okay, that's so on the chart, we're holding at line 1, right? We're holding at line 1, part 3. Line 1, part 3. He was only goyrim the Issa. He shouldn't have married the brother in the first place. Now the question is this middle thing. How do I know that Rab Tarfin held Almanas? And the answer is, guys, because if he held Chutz, it wouldn't be a good kasha. You hear the format. If he held Chutz, it wouldn't be a good kasha. Continue. Ubemai, back in the Gemara, guys, I'll leave the chart. Ubemai, Elaim b'chutz, Mishra Shari. If it's speaking Chutz, guess what? You could marry Shimon. If Levi died, she can marry Shimon. You know why? Because Levi married her. Guys, you hear? If you hold Chutz and there's a marriage in between that takes off Ruvain's guy who put this in motion, it takes off everything, right? Mishra Shari Rebbe Eliezer, the Tanya, Moide Rebbe Eliezer b'megaris eshishtoi, v'amala hariyat muteres l'chol adam chutz miploini, v'holcha v'nisas le'echem in ashuk, and she marries a second person, v'nis alma in his garsha, shemuteres l'zeh shenesu v'lov, should be mutter to Shimon. Ela ba'almanas, it must be speaking almanas. It's a beautiful nakuda. Guys, here, outside, look at me. He makes the tonight, regular case. Watch. Ruvain says to Miriam, you're divorced from me. You can marry everyone in the world, chutz, except Shimon. What's Reb Tarfin's kasha? What are you worried about? If she marries Levi, Shimon's brother, and then Levi dies, he's falling to Yibam. Guess what? If it's speaking chutz, she can fall to Yibam. You know why? Because once Levi married her, what did it do? It took Ruvain out of the picture. Ella must be speaking what? Almanas. Because Almanas goes back to the original Ruvain's get. Lemafreya was never a get. Bomb. Beautiful. That's case number 1. Guys, you got case number 1. Now, we're going to the second one. We're now going to Rabbi Yossi Galili. What did Rabbi Yossi Galili say? He said, how do you find one person that's asl lazeh umat lazeh? I'll keep the chart open. How do you find one person that's asl lazeh umat lazeh? So, Nena Rabbi Yossi Galili v'amar, heichim atzinu asl lazeh umat lazeh, ha'asa asa l'chol, ha'matamut l'chol. So you don't find this half-breed get, right, one to the other. V'loi, very trumas of kachim, shasur l'zeh mutar. Trumas and kachim is mutar to a koye and it's asa to what to a hedyet. Says the Gemara, Bisi Isha come in. We're not speaking about kachim. We're speaking about inyani ishus. Says the Gemara, royos. We're speaking about a royos. You can marry your sister. Anyone else can marry your sister. Says the Gemara, Ishus come in. We're speaking al yidei kedushin. Where do you find someone al kedushin that's asa l'zeh mutar l'zeh? Hariyeshes ish, hainu pircha. That's the pircha. Now, that's the kasha. So you see the chart. There it is. An Eishes Ish is mutter to a husband and asa to everyone else. Now, we're going to prove it's speaking by chutz and not speaking almanas, guys. You see the second part? We're going to prove that it's speaking about chutz and not almanas. Ubemai, what's it speaking about? Ilaim of almanas, hayuhutra etzle bisnos. If it's speaking about almanas, one second. Where do you find asal zeh mutter lezeh? 1 second. To Shimon, let's say, guys, you gave a get. Guys, let's go through it. You gave a get. Reuven gives a get to Miriam. Almanas on the condition that she doesn't marry Shimon. So let's say she doesn't marry Shimon. Is she also to Shimon? Als Ishus. Could she have relations with Shimon? Yes. Good. It's al yedei avera, but it's not awesome. It's not Isser of Eishes Ish. That's if you'd say what? Almanas. Remember, what does almanas mean? Almanas that you don't marry. If you say chutz, you know what it means? It means completely across the board. So obviously it must mean that what? That it's speaking by chutz. Must be speaking by chutz when he asks the question. Because then it'll be usher across the board completely. You good? That's very geschmack Gemara, but again, it's cheshbon. How are we doing? Are we lost in the sauce? Yankel, you gone?
Isn't that the beer? That's beer. That's
No, listen. This is you get almanas that you don't marry Shimon. She's not marrying Shimon. She had relations with Shimon, but she didn't marry Shimon. We need one that's completely asa, that you can't do anything. So it must be that is chutz, because chutz will be completely asa. That's important to know. If you don't understand that, this is important for Gemara down the line, okay? Next case. So now we're up to Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, guys, in the chart. He's good, right? Rabbi Elazar on the chart, again, he's good, no questions asked. And we're up to Rabbi Akiva, right? Now we're up to Rabbi Akiva. What did Rabbi Akiva say? Let's go through it again. She married, let's outside. Let's do it with the Hebrew. Reuven gives a get what to the world, right? For not to marry Shimon, right? What happens? She marries Yankel. She has children with Yankel. Then after the Yankel dies, what happens? She marries Shimon. Mevatel tonight. Children of Mamzerim. What's the pirch on that? Then tonight you should worry about, right? And then we're going to see it's proven almanas. Let's see it inside. Then Rabbi Akiva v'Amar, Harishahol chazu v'nisas lechem in ashuk. She goes and she marries someone from the shuk. She marries Yankel. She has children from Yankel. V'nis almanis gasha from Yankel. V'omda v'nisas lezesh shenesu love. She marries Shimon. Lo nimtza get bottle v'na mamzerim. Says the Gemara, Ihachi, what's the kasha? Because tonight the almanami leitinasev. She should never able to remarry if the get was given on tonight. Dilmalay mekayim tonight. But if get bottle, ubanel mamzerim and hanu pircha. That's the pircha. It's a gavaldic pircha. In other words, if this tonight doesn't work, no tonight should work. So she should never be able to remarry. Aye. Now what's it speaking about? Chutz or almanas? Ubamai. Elaim b'chutz. Again, what's the same kasha, guys? If it's speaking by chutz, as soon as she marry Yankel, guess what? You don't have to worry about mamzerim. It's totally off. So it must be speaking what Mr. Shai Tanya, Rabbi Elazar ben Megarish Sishtoi, V'amala Rab Muteres L'Choladam, Chutz Miploni, V'holcha V'nisas Lechem in Ashuk, V'nis Amlan Iskarsha, Shem Muteres L'Zeh, Shenesru Alav, El Ba'almanas. It's speaking by Almanas. Okay, the most difficult part of this evening is the next shita. This is the most difficult part. Okay. The Davar Acher was what? What was the Davar Acher? The man she's asa to is the Kayin. She's asa to Shimon. Okay, now the Megaresh dies, and now she's a widow to the Kohen and a Grusha to everyone else. This Issa of Grusha extends to the Kohen. So we now have a Kal V'chomer to Asa Ha to all men, since she was an Eshes Ish regarding the Kohen. Guys, let's do it outside again. Let's go both directionals. Look at me. Let's go both directionals. Okay, this is the hard part. We're going to get this, and I'm going to be happy. So far, you have a format of what's going on over here, right? It's you know what's okay now. Here's the case, right? The case is Shimon's a Kohen. So as soon as you divorces her, so ostensibly here's what you're going to say: she's a grusha to the rest of the world, and she's an Ashes Ish to Shimon, right? But it's not true. The Gerusha extends to her. The Tzad Gerishin of here extends to her. The Tzad Gerishin over here extends to her. Yeah. Now, if that Tzad Gerishin from here extends to her, why does he to Shimon and Ashes Ish? So how can she's put to the rest of the world? Just as the Tzad Gerishin from here extends to what? To Shimon, so to Shimon's Tzad Ashes Ish should extend back to what? Her and Asher and the rest of the world. That's the pircha. That's the kasha. Rabbi Akiva asked the second question on who? On Rabbi Eliezer. Now, what does it say on the chart? Let's get this straight. The chart says what? Forget it, just listen well. Okay, that's what it says on the chart. It says forget it, just listen well. Okay, so for that we have another chart. Okay, now this chart, no one's going to laugh at me. I sent it out. It's not in the chart. It's on your phone. Look on your phone. I only sent to one chat. Ron, you both have it. What don't you have, Yanko? I think I sent it to everybody. I know I sent it to both. What? It's not by you?
Oh, yeah?
Yankel, I sent it to you. Okay, now, this was my first attempt at using the whiteboard, okay? So I had to write, as you can see, it's a scroll. It's a bit of a scroll. Mechel, stop laughing. And now this is the kasha, guys, but this is the difference, guys. It's not a kasha. It's why it's speaking by chutz. Guys, listen to the teretz. Guys, let me tell you the teretz. The teretz is, that at the end, is shiny kahuna. Kahuna is different. What are you asking me a question from? You asking me a question if Yankel is a kohen, if Shimon's a kohen, shiny Shimon is a kohen is different, right? If it's a kohen, he's different. That's what we answer. If it's a kohen, he's different. That's going to be the teretz. That it's different by kahanim. Since it's different by kahanim, right? That's the difference. Okay, that's going to be the difference. So now, right now, what my chart is going to do is going to go ahead and explain why it's speaking about chutz and not by almanas. Okay, why it's speaking by chutz and not almanas. Okay, so here's the case. You have that scroll, guys. You look at the scroll. So here's the case. Ruvain divorces almanas. If you're going to say it's speaking almanas, Ruvain divorces almanas that he can't marry Shimon. Shimon's a kohen, and then Ruvain dies. So now, to the oilam, the whole world, she's a gerusha, correct? To the whole world, she's a gerusha. Shimon is a kohen, she's an eshes ish, but she's also what? A gerusha, correct? She's also a gerusha, because the tzad gerusha comes me oilam. Good? And what was the kasha? The kasha was that she's, what's answering her? It's the tzad gerusha that's answering her, right? And the answer is, it's not the tzad gerusha that's answering her. If it's almanas, look, if it's almanas, it's the tzad gerusha mitzad atzmoi biznus that's answering. In other words, even if you're going to tell me, right, that this is making it usher, even without this, it will be usher. Even without the tzad of the rest of the world, should be usher to the kohen al gerusha, which what al snus. She wouldn't be able to be mezana with this woman because she's a gerusha. She's a gerusha, and therefore mitzad atzma it's asa. So now, therefore, if it's speaking almanas, then the whole thing that is predicated upon is not true. Your whole limit is predicated upon what? Tzad atzma from here. Go. You know, I don't know if you can see me now. I'm not sure. Are you able to see me? The guys in the guys on Zoom, are you able to see me? I always have charts in front of me. Are you able to see me? Someone talk to me.
Yes.
You're able to see me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you. Okay, so now watch. This whole thing is predicated upon the following, that the whole reason she's a gerusha is because of them. So therefore, the whole reason they should be also because it's an eshes ish. I got a question on that. Forget that she's a gerusha to them. She's a gerusha to him achmas nus. Since it's not mitzad, since it's asa mitzad atzmai, right? That's what this chart's coming to do. Since it's asa mitzad atzmai, if it's almanas, then your condition. Therefore, it's not possible. It's not possible that your limud should be in vogue. What's your limud? This creates this to that, and therefore this creates that. The Olam does not create the issa on the kohen Shimon. You know what creates the issa? The fact he can't have znus, even if he can't marry her, that would be almanas. Again, what does almanas mean, guys? Almanas that you can't marry. Almanas you can't marry. Not almanas you can't have znus. Yes? So therefore, why can't he have znus? Because of his own. Good? So it can't have because of its own, then it doesn't reflect, just like you don't reflect back to me, I can reflect back to you. So therefore, it must be speaking about chutz. It must be speaking that it's speaking what? Outside. Okay, let's do it inside and do the best we can. Okay, so here. So I forget it, just that. Let's go back to the Zoom screen. Let's stop the share. How do you stop sharing this? Not the share. Let's stop the share. Okay. Okay. Says the Gemara inside. Tavaracher, 3 lines to the bottom. Tavaracher. I show you Zeh Nesr Love Koyen. that the one Shimon was a Kayin, Umeis Hamigaresh, and Ruvain dies, like Nimsa Almana Etzloi, she's an Almana Tuah to Shimon, the Gerusha Etzel Kol Adam, the whole world, the Kal V'chaimer. Now, again, remember, she's a Gerusha to Shimon because of the rest of the world. Uma Gerusha she Kala, Asura Mishum Sad Gerish and Sheba, she'd be Asa to Shimon because it's Sad Gerish of the rest of the world. Ashes Ish Chamura to Shimon that she's an Ashes Ish, like Kol Shekain, she'd be what? Asa on the rest of the world, and she isn't. Ubemai, what are we speaking about? Elaim about Almanas. If you're speaking about Almanas, so again, Almanas means you can't marry, but you could what? But you could have what? Snus. So she'd be Asa to the Kayin as Gerusha for Snus. Gerusha Etzlei Biznus. She's a Grutza Etzlei Biznus, meaning she's a Grutza not Machmas the rest of the world. Independently on themselves, she's a Gerusha. And therefore, it's not possible that what? That the Kasha, what's your Kasha? Just like this asks to this asks to this doesn't ask to this. This independently would be us if you say Almanas. This independently would also be if you say Almanas. Why? Because she's asa to marry, but mutaf is nus. Eli, you know why it's asa? Because she's a grusha to himself. Memela, it can't be speaking Almanas, it must be speaking by chutz, because by chutz she's asa sai in marriage and sai in relations. Okay, now, Rabbi Akiva, guys, he said two things, right? Rabbi Akiva said two things, and I of course closed the screen over here, so I have to get this back. Okay, just hang with me. Hang with me. I can't close this up. Hang with me for a second. Okay, now, Rabbi Akiva said two things, right? Let's open it up. Here we have Rabbi Akiva. He said two things, right? Look at the bottom chart, guys, the middle column. One he said Almanas, and one he said Chutz, correct? One he said Almanas, and one he said Chutz. Which one did he hold? In other words, he's asking two questions, but which one? If he held Almanas, you only have the first question. You don't have the second question. If he held chutz, you don't have the first question, you only have the second question, right? That's the kasha. Says the Gemara now. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Akiva, top line. Rabbi Akiva, chutz svirale. If he holds chutz, leisiv lechutz, let him just hold. Ask the last kasha. The almanas svirale, leisiv almanas, let him ask the first kasha. So it's going Rabbi Akiva shmiale the ikad ama chutz, vikad ama almanas. Man the ama chutz. Hi pircha, umandam umnas hi pircha. Now we're going to ask the kasha, guys, only among the yamachutz. We're going to go to the second lashon, right? Umay pircha. What's the second question, guys? Now, to understand the second question, we have to go back. We have to go back to yesterday's Gemara. Okay, let's go back to yesterday's Gemara. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines down from the top. Yesterday's Gemara, 5 lines down from the top. My time of the Rebbe Eliezer. What's the reason Rebbe Eliezer holds that, guys, your Messiah beget is good? What's the reason he holds Messiah beget is good? Rabbi Yanai, Mishum Zaki Nechad, Akra, it says, V'yotzam Beisai, V'holcho V'hoisel Ish Acher, and she'll leave his house and she'll go to another person. Afil lo yitira el Ish Acher, even he only permits it to another person. I was going to make a reshes. Nothing to do with a kohen, correct? Nothing to do with a kohen. That's who? That's Rabbi Yanai. Skip a line. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, time of the Rebbe Eliezer Mechacha. And this is Parshas Emma. And this is the Issa for a kohen to marry a Gerusha. The Isha, Gerusha me Isha, lo yikachu. And a woman who is divorced from a man, he can't take. Afil when is Garsha Elam Isha, even if she's only sent away by a husband, Vifsalah min kahuna. She's asat, right? Good? Yes? Good. Now, what's the possible answer you'll give? Guys, what's the possible answer you'll give to this question? Here, I'll give you the last. Look at the last question. The man she's asat to is a kayin. The megarish dies. Dun 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 dun. You know what you can say when I put in the column over here? Forget it. Just listen well. You can put in the column over here. Shiny kayin. It's different kayin. Correct. Good. So that would only be if he holds like Reb Yanai. who said it's from Yatzav Haisel Shacher. But if he holds like Rabbi Yochanan from the Parsha one of Kayin, so obviously there's no chilek because he said the whole din from Kayin. So Ella, you're forced to say that he must hold like Rabbi Yanai, it's from a Haisel Shacher, and rather than the pasuk of Emor, because pasuk Emor you could give that teretz. So the teretz over here in this column over here, the pircha on this whole thing is shiny Kayin. A Kayin's different. Since the Kayin's different, therefore that's why we're more machmir. Mashenk, by a regular person, we won't be so machmir. That would be the kasha we'd ask on the pircha of Rabbi Akiva. Let's see it inside. Says the Gemara. Okay, so we're now on Pei Gimel on the days. Pei Gimel on the days. Says the Gemara. Yeah. What are you going to answer? Umay pircha. What's the pircha you're going to say to Rabbi Akiva on his timer that what's going to happen if she marries Shimon Zakayin? Umay pircha. Inema Issa Kahuna shiny. Why do you say Issa Kahuna is different? Rabbi Eliezer nami Issa Kahuna kamaisila. Rabbi Eliezer bought from Issa Kahuna. Like Rabbi Yochanan, he bought from Issa Kahuna. He bought from Parshas Emor. Says Gemara. El Rava who said that you have a pircha on all of them. Rabbi Yanai mishum zakin echad kamaisni. He learned b'shem Rabbi Yanai that does not learn from Kahuna. He learns from V'yatzav Haisel Shacher, and Memele he can give the teretz that what shiny Kahuna. Kahuna is different. Okay, 7.5 years from now, guys, you'll do this again. Okay, Bez Hashem, right? We're I did. It's not easy. It's not easy, but I think again we have the mahalach. The chart is pretty clear. If you have any questions, I'm available in 7.5 years from now. Anyway, says no, I'm just kidding. If you have any questions, I'll answer them. Okay. Now it gets a little easier now. Rabbi Yeshua. You don't ask questions on the Ari after he's dead. You don't ask questions on Rabbi Eliezer after he's not in this world, because he'd been alive, he'd answer you. Guys, we just saw the whole Gemara that on every question that they question, we have an answer. In other words, we have a question on their question. Why is it a question? So had Rabbi Eliezer been alive, he ostensibly could have given you that answer, correct? Anyway, don't ask questions. Remember the Rabbi Yeshua Kavase Sfirle. You mean Rabbi Yeshua said this? It's mashma that he agreed to Rabbi Eliezer. He also asked on him. He also had a question. What's his question? We'll see in a second. I also have a pircha. Nonetheless, whether it's me or you, we don't ask on Hari after Misa. What's the pircha? Okay, now, guys, the pasuk says, by Gitin, it says that she goes from his house and she goes to another house. So there's two marriages, guys, outside. There's two marriages. There's the first marriage she's getting divorced from, and the second marriage she's going into. So let's make a hekesh between the two marriages. In the first marriage, was there any strings attached before she married anybody? No. So to the second marriage, there's no strings attached. It says v'yatzami beisai v'hoisa, meaning second kedushin l'shacher. And that's the question Rabbi Yeshua ben Chananya would have asked what on Rabbi Eliezer. Says the Gemara. Says the Tanya. My pircha Rabbi Yeshua, the Tanya. Rabbi Yeshua makish koid me'avaya shniya lekoid me'avaya rishayna. We go ahead and we look at her first state before she's married, just the second state like the first state. Ma koid me'avaya rishayna. Before she got married the first time, the lo yagida b'inish achrina. She wasn't going ahead and attached to anybody. Av koid me'avaya shniya lo yagida b'inish achrina. She wasn't attached to anybody. Okay, that's the question I would have asked. Okay, now in our discussion, guys, we said that we can't be speaking by chutz. You know why? Because if she marries the second time, that takes care of the first guy. It's totally off. Good? That takes care. So the first guy created a nissa. You can't marry Shimon. She marries Yankel. Except Shimon, she marries Yankel. What happened? The marriage of Yankel went ahead and mevatel Ruvain's issa. Again, if you say lashon chutz, you know what that means? Ruvain is you're in the ballpark as long as she doesn't marry. Once she marries, then you're out. We used it twice. That's why we said it had to be speaking almanas rather than chutz. We use that. So now the Gemara is going to question that. Gufa, Mother Rebbe Lezer Megarish Ishtay. A guy divorces Miriam. Ruvain divorces Miriam. V'amallah Hariyat Muteres l'chol adam. You put it to the whole world. Chutz mi pliny except Shimon. V'hol chamenissus le'echem min ashuk. She marries Yankel. She's from Yankel. Shemuteres lezesh. She's mutal and shenev she's been mutal to Shimon. Hey, Shev Rebbe Lezer ben Azariah. Rebbe Lezer. Shuva l'divrei Rebbe Eliezer. Heichem Atzinu Shezeh Oisa V'Zeh Mater. How could it be Ruvain Asid and Yankel's Mater? All right, that's what happened. Ruvain said you're awesome on the rest of the, you put the rest of the world except what Shimon, and now Yankel marries. How can he matter? Says Mavloi, right? Yavama the Baal Oisa the Yava Mater. Guys, she's Yavam Lashuk ostensibly. What's the Issa? The Issa is because of the dead brother. That's questionable, but right? Who matters her? The Chalitza of the Yavama, the Chalitza of the Yavam. So who asid? The dead brother. Who matted? The live brother. So you see that what? One who asis, matis, right? So Hasam Yavam who ka'aslei. There it's the Yavam that it's the brother, the live brother that asis. Dimi Baal Hashay V'Kaima. Guys, he's dead. She's an almana vis-a-vis the brother. It's the zika of the connection to the live brother that asis. So it's not a case of what? Asal Azeh, Mutter Azeh. It's a case of Mutter. The one who's answering is the one who's mattering. Harin the Noida Isa, the Chacham Mater. The husband, anyone makes a neder, right? And the Chacham's matter the neder. The Havamina is that there's no input of the Noida. Says Muhammad Rabbi Yochanan, in Chacham Mater Klum, Ela B'Charata. How does Charata work? Had I known, Lima Freya, there was never guess what? There was never a neder in the first place. So it's not Pshat the Chacham Mater the neder, he's matering an Issa, there was no Issa. That's what he's saying, there was no Issa. So therefore, it's held true. How do you find the case of this one's answering, this one's mattering? Says Hari Hafaris Habal, the Isha Noideres Ubal Mefer. So the Isha is the one who makes the neder that asses and the Bal's Mefer. So you have an instance of what? Someone mattering and answering and someone mattering. Hasam clear Pinchas from Shnei the Rava. Don't worry, Pinchas from Shnei the Rava. Calling Noideres al Das Baila Noideres. Right? Anyone makes the neder is making Das Baila. So the Baal is the one that asses it and the Baal the one is matter it. Now, Rebbe Lezman Azariah, Nena Rebbe Lezman Azariah Ama Krisis Dava Koris Beino Levena. So again, guys, who was the one who will serve throughout? Who was the one you had no question on? Rebbe Lezman Azariah. Meaning, it says v'chasav la sefer krisis minasam biyada. You're going to write a sefer krisis. Once you write a sefer krisis, what does krisis mean? Cut. If she goes ahead, and whether you say almanas or you say chutz, it doesn't make a difference. What are you doing? Your get is not going ahead and committing to the rest of the world. Your get is still not a get vis-a-vis Shimon. So therefore, it's not a sefer krisis. Now, obviously, the Rabbanon, meaning Rav Tarfin, Rabbi Yossi Aglili, and Rabbi Akiva, they're not darshan krisis this way, or else they would have agreed. Or Elazar ben Azariah. Why do they do with the pasuk of sefer krisis? Why do they do with that pasuk? High krisis my of delay. We need it for the following brisa. This is your get al manas that what you don't drink wine. This is your get al manas that you don't go to your father's house. There's no gavul. Once you're bound to the guy forever, that's not a krisis. However, shleishim yoyim haris a krisis. Once you give a gavul 30 days, then it's not. Then it is the krisis. But when there's no gavul, when it's forever, then what? Then there's no krisis. That's what they use it for. The idach. What does Rav Shimon ben Azai? Where does Rabbi Elazar ben Azai learn that from? It could have said chorus. It says krisis, a double lashon, nafka. So no, guys, it should have said v'chasalav sefer chorus. It says v'chasalav sefer krisis. So he learns out two things. One, it has to be cut completely, and two, it has to be a tanai that has a gavul that has a boundary to it. The idach and the rabbanon, where do they know the din from? It says well, chorus krisis by darshi. They don't darshan the extra one. Okay, let's finish up. Amarava. This is your get that you don't drink wine all the days of my life. Ain't that krisis. All the days of Harry's life. Harry's a krisis. What's the difference? If Harry dies, it's a good get. If this guy dies, it's not. Either one is a tanai. All the days of your life ain't that krisis. There'd be a big difference. When you say the life of Pliny, when you say my life, there's a gavul inside. Whenever that person dies, but the days of your life, there is no krisis, right? Because you won't be able to drink wine until the end of your life.
Why is it different than the tonight that you can't marry someone?
What?